Good morning, everyone. Today is another episode of Arks Trash, which means it is a audio-only podcast. But as usual, I have prepared a bunch of B-roll, so for my visual listeners, you have something to watch. Now, today's special guest is Thrift Shopping. I know a lot of you guys really wanted him on the show, so we managed to make it happen. But before we begin the video, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily, so if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe, as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Arks Trash. Today we have special guest Thrift Shopping here. Thrift, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I guess I can do that. What's up, everybody? My name's Thrift Shopping. I stream over on Twitch 5 days a week.
All right, perfect. So Thrift, what exactly do you stream, and what type of content is your channel about?
My content, keroppi, is exclusively New Genesis. Recently we've been playing a little bit of Lost Ark, but just for fun, but exclusively New Genesis content. So I try to bring out weekly videos on the YouTube channel as well, trying to provide some information about the game. And yeah, over on Twitch 5 days a week, New Genesis.
So is there a specific niche that you cover about New Genesis? Do you cover a specific class, or like what's it all about?
Yeah, I definitely do play a couple primary classes, and a lot of the community knows me by the vet bonker. On our channel, we will exclusively go kill veterans pretty much every single day. One of my favorite things to do in any game is to try to figure out how to make money, and especially in New Genesis and Phantasy Star in general, the ability to buy anything with in-game currency is very appealing, and I like to try to help everybody find a way to make money so they can afford their fashion and outfits and capsules and anything else you need. So we like to try to focus on how to make money in the NGS game.
Other than your Twitch side, I also see that you have a YouTube channel?
Absolutely, yes, of course. YouTube is just a really great way to provide information and, have it out there for anybody new or coming back into the game to, see what's the game state like. And so, just trying to provide guides to certain things. Like I said, I'm always interested in trying to find ways to make money. So I'm always trying to, showcase any type of way to make money on my YouTube. Like I've explained how to make money off of veterans, or more recently how to make money off of these new Deafness 3 capsules. Just trying to find different ways to make money. But I'm also starting to dive into more guides or deep thought analysis into weapon series, armor series, and fights when they happen, UQs. So just trying to take a deeper look into some of the mechanics and some of the statistics and data that we get from this game, and trying to really hammer home what's the most important thing for you to do with your money and your time.
All right, perfect. I think you've talked about, or you've touched upon, a lot of topics that we're going to be talking about today. But before we do that, I have to ask you, what is the deal with your VTube model with Karen and Thrift? Could you tell me, is there some history between that, or a story? What's up with that?
I 100% can tell you that. So I just started streaming this year, and it was for NGS. So I started NGS and realized this is the game that I want to play, and this is the game that I want to stream. So I started my stream like a couple weeks after New Genesis came out, and it was just me with no camera or anything. And I just started, streaming like anybody else did. And I was lucky enough to meet some really good people in the community, and they showed me this whole VTubing thing. And, at first I thought you would have to spend thousands of dollars getting a 2D model and all these things. And, my namesake Thrift Shopping, it isn't there, just as a name. I'm a very frugal person, and so that just did not appeal to me. So I tried to find a way like, oh, how could I make a model or have something on the screen? And so, yeah, I had a really good friend, Kitsubi, kind of take me under their wing and show me some software I could use. And I just started messing with my character. And the idea of Karen just came along because I was I'm somewhat of a role player. I like having story and lore. And so as I was making this character, I was like trying to figure out like, who would this be? Or, how would this character, have personality of their own? And just the idea of just Karen came to mind. You always hear those, oh, she's being a Karen, or that person's being a Karen and being rude. And I thought, oh, this would be such a fun take on VTubing. Whenever you see a VTuber or a live 2D character, they're always like really cutesy and adorable. And I was like, nobody's ever trying to make like a jerk for a VTuber. Not to say Karen is, but if you've ever watched my stream, Karen definitely has some attitude. And it that's really where it came from. I just started creating the character and just try to give the VTuber their own story.
So, now I know a lot of my viewers want us to talk about the new update. So recently we got the Dark Falls Urgent Quest on February 16. How many runs were you able to get into so far?
All right, well, I wish it was more, Sega. First off, we need to talk about that, Sega. Let's make sure we get some more soon. But yeah, I was able to get on the first day, I was able to get into 3. I missed the first one that came out like right after the maintenance update because I was sleeping, but I was able to make about 3 that day. And then I think the day after that, it was about 3 as well. And then today I hit 2. So I've had a few runs, and I've tried to make sure I tried it as a ranged class as well as a melee class, and just to try to get all the information that I could for the fight.
Okay, so initial thoughts since you've had what, like 8 runs now? What do you think about the Urgent Quest? Do you like it? Do you hate it?
I think there's a lot of great things to take away from it. I think as the player base from New Genesis, and including a lot of base players, we were waiting for that iconic fight, that fight that had a lot of weight to it, that felt like we were impacting something in this world. The NGS story has been quite a slow experience, especially for someone like me, who doesn't have a lot of experience with base game. It does feel like a really slow story. So to finally have this really hyped fight, this iconic monster from this whole entire franchise be in our game and we get to try to defeat it was a very lasting memory. Something that I'll always remember my first fight from this UQ, and I think a lot of us will, just because of how impactful it was and the entire game as a whole.
I agree. I think that this is the first step in the right direction, like the first solid piece of content where I was like, wow, this is good. This is really a unforgettable experience. But I'm sure there's a lot of things that you wanted to talk about regarding this Urgent Quest, so I'm all ears. What did you want to talk about?
Okay, so I want to bounce some stuff off, both of us, because I feel like I got some good takes, but keroppi, I feel like you got some good ones too, okay? So the first thing I want to bring up, and this doesn't even apply with the UQ, but it kind of does, but the disconnects have been horrible since this update. I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's been really bad, and I feel like it's really soured a lot of my experience with this game, and especially around the UQs. Just trying to get a full party in to do the UQ, and you would have somebody disconnected every single time. I know that I've had at least some runs for Dark Files, we've had to try to reconnect 5+ times to try to get all 8 people in. And it's a very unfortunate thing to happen around such an iconic fight.
Yeah, I definitely have had that problem. Luckily, not that much on Dark Falls, but it's happened a lot on Pedesvera for some reason. I don't know why, but we would take turns crashing. So we would have like a group of 8 people, and then everyone would just take a turn crashing, and so we just had to keep remaking the game. But I feel like it could be the reason why we're getting this maintenance 1 day earlier, and we are getting a longer maintenance too. It could be because they are addressing this issue, plus of course there is the premium PSO2 day coming up. But it definitely has gotten me, my alliance, a lot of people that I know are very frustrated because of this.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you're right with that maintenance being moved up a day, and it's nice that they are giving themselves extra time. I hope this is one of the reasons that they're going to address, because it is a really unfortunate thing. A lot of players, unlike us that we play frequently, a lot of players coming back to try these new, UQs or events out, and then you're just encountered with disconnects left and right. It just leaves a really sour taste, and if you're trying to win back players, that's not how you do it, right? And a lot of this is out of their control. They can't necessarily, expect this to happen. So I do hope that this maintenance will fix that, because I do think it'll be a much better experience for anybody if obviously you can get in and play right away.
Yep, for sure. So other than that, the next thing I wanted to touch on is the Cenquian Weapons, because a lot of people have been asking, it's quite a controversial item with the requirement of 1,250 Photon Scales. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, well, first off, Sega, thank you for the gut punch. I don't think any of us were expecting the level 4 potential material requirement that we saw. Every single weapon series prior to that has always required NEX cubes, And from the headlines, we knew that it was going to require Photon Scales, and we knew that it was going to require progressively more. But wow, 600 for that 4th level potential takes a long time, and it's a huge time investment. I think that's the biggest thing that drove home for me is like, wow, like you're going to have to play around UQs now, which if you play every day isn't a bad thing. But to the player that just wants to pop in for a week or two, play the content, and then wait for new updates, you pretty much can scratch this Senquiam series off from your list because you're just not going to have that much time or that much desire to put into this game to be able to fully upgrade the Senquiam series.
Yeah, personally, I think if they did several changes, one of 2 changes would alleviate this issue to a certain degree. First of all, I would think either make Photon Scales tradable, like you could sell it on the market. That would be one way. Or the second method is if there was another way to obtain Photon Scales which wasn't time gated through urgent quest or through your daily mineral route. Maybe if you could farm it from combat zones or something, I feel like that would alleviate some of the worries of like, wow, I need to wait a month, and if I'm a casual player I need to wait 2 months before I can even make this weapon, and by the time 2 months is up, we have the level 45 level cap and we're probably gonna have new weapons, and people are worried about that. So what about you? Do you think there's any other solutions that Sega could look into which would alleviate all these worries?
Absolutely, Keroppi. I think you hit a lot of it on the nail. There has to be some other alternatives to just gathering 5 a day and then doing UQs. I think this was the jumping off point for them. This is where they began, and then slowly they'll introduce other things. My mind kind of goes towards the item exchange. We already exchange end grinders weekly for other minerals. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we can exchange grinders for some scales, or maybe even silver or gold prim swords, which we have used already to exchange for weekly resources. So my mind kind of goes that route. That could give us maybe another 10 to 20 a week that way. Also, weekly or limited time quests. It wouldn't be that hard for them to make it a weekly reward if you accomplish all your missions and tasks, that you get another 20 to 30 weekly. And then, you're appealing to a different type of gamer that maybe can't make all the UQs, but they can log on and do all the daily tasks and then accomplish weekly tasks. They could get some that way as well. And another thing in some of the comments from some of my videos, a lot of people are saying, hey, we have the seasonal urgent quest and the seasonal event right around the corner. So we might be seeing more seasonal UQs, which means, well, more UQs because we'll have these seasonal UQs. We're getting triggers with that as well, so you can run them whenever you want to. If those are giving scales, that's another option to get some more. As well as we know that we've gotten minerals in the seasonal shops. We've also had the alpha reactors in the seasonal shop. It wouldn't be a surprise to think that we would probably have 50 or 100 every 2 weeks to buy from there as well. So yeah, I agree with you. I do think we are going to have a bunch of additional options moving forward with these Photon Scales. So hopefully that 1250 Photon Scale grind does get reduced because of these additional options.
Yep, fully agree. I think that they created a problem so that they can look good by creating a solution in March with the seasonal event. It could be a strategy like that, right?
I 100% agree. I think a lot of what we're doing right now, we'll get into this later, I think a lot of what we're doing right now is kind of just going in big circles. We could just take a straight path to the goal, but they're making us go in circles and loops and stuff to make us feel like we're doing stuff. And the Photon Scales is exactly one of those things.
So speaking about doing stuff, you have been quite the strong advocate of sticking with your Grius or Giant armors, because the new armors, or the, I'm just going to call them the Zest armors and the Rosso armors, whatever, but you tell a lot of people not to upgrade to those, especially if you've heavily invested in your Giant and Grius armors. And do you think this is just Sega's way of creating more inflated content for other players, or not?
Possibly. I talk a lot to Twitch chat, obviously, when I'm streaming, and I like to ask these questions with everybody because they're, part of the player base. And a lot of the reception I got back when I would ask them that question of, if you're heavily invested in these units already, do you plan on going into the new Dark Files units? And a lot would say, absolutely. It's a guaranteed upgrade. It has health, no negative health drawbacks. It has some photon power. It gives like everything you would want in a unit, right? But the problem is you have to go ahead and try to sell that unit. And I can tell anybody right now listening to this, you can go to the shops right now and go look for units that you have for Gant and Grius. Just look at how many people are selling theirs, and you're all in a bidding war to be the cheapest. And so you're practically giving money away at that point to try to get rid of your old units to go into these new ones. And like I said, I don't think any of the content right now requires you to throw away money to go into new units. Now, I always tell people you need to play how you want to. If you will have more fun in this game by working on a unit, go ahead and do it. Don't tell anybody. Don't let anybody tell you what to do. But you need to understand that it isn't as easy as selling a 10 million Meseta unit because it has an Addi capsule on it. If somebody has that much money, they're going to go make their own units anyways. So that's where my mind led to a lot of people. If you're already invested in these units, you have to ask yourself, what content is going to require you to re-upgrade, right? Unfortunately, we've already found out with the Dark Files UQ, it isn't as tough as we thought, and it's basically guaranteed. So once again, what content are we going to get in the next 2+ months that is going to require you to upgrade out of those units? And that's what I try to mention to people when they're thinking about upgrading these units out of stuff that they've already heavily invested in. I just don't see the value in it. I like to think of these new Dark Files units as almost like catch-up units, because if you have been playing in the last previous meta, like with Alio, where you played a little bit of Retem but didn't upgrade any unit, this is a great option for you, because you can literally just buy these, skip Grius, skip all the other 5-star units, and you have literally the best in slot unit, and you can keep working on it, and it'll catch you up to what everybody else is at right now. But if you're already invested, there's no content right now that deserves it. There just really isn't.
Yeah, fair assessment. So I'm going to take the other side, or the other view, and that is, in my point of view, I feel like this armor is great. The reason for this is because I never invested into Giant or Grius, because I didn't like any negatives. It's just the way that I approach a game. I prefer to be the well-balanced, or like slightly towards the tanky side, because I like playing Braver, which is a melee class. I'm always up in the thick of things, and I know that I am making mistakes all the time, and I always will get hit. And I don't like dying if I make one single mistake or 2 mistakes, which is why I prefer like just no downsides. I don't want any HP reduction, I don't want any elemental resistance down. I just want to have a solid piece of armor. And this, the new armors from the Dark Falls Urgent Quest, covers all my weaknesses. It's got that 1% damage reduction, it's got that HP, it's got that PP, it's got that 2% potency. So I was like, this is it. This is the perfect armor for me. Which is why, as I'm sure Thrift is going to grill me later on, I invested heavily into these augments, into this armor, and made sure that, hey, this armor has all the augments that I need in order to carry me until, level 60 or level 45 or whatever. But I'm going to be keeping these armors for a while, and this is why I invested so much into it. But I do understand Thrift's view over here on, hey, if you have Grius or Giant armors already, fully augmented with Addi capsules and stuff like that, you should just stick with it. Because something I came to realize was I was comparing my armor with another member of mine that was using Gius armor, and I was like, or Grius armor, sorry, and I was like, wait a second, our stats aren't that different, but they have a lot more PP and they have a lot more potency. So it was a little bit of a kick in the gut for me, because I didn't realize it until I finished it. Then I was like, wait a second, these are actually like really similar. So Thrift, could you give me more details on, or explanations on like why that is?
Well, first thing, Keroppi, you just need to get good, and then you wouldn't get hit. But in all seriousness, I agree. There's a lot of things I agree with. Like I said, I think Giant and Grius is great right now, but there are a lot of negative drawbacks, obviously, to them. The biggest one is the HP, which obviously the new units cover, right? They give you HP. And then also the negative status ailments is a big fear. And something that you mentioned, you use those units because you felt confident using these units going into level 60 content. Something that I really want to mention is that if you have Giant or Grius right now, you are most likely switching out of these units as soon as we get that new content, simply because of what status ailments we have encountered so far in the game and what status ailments we are planning on going into. I don't know exactly what region we're gonna get, but if it's that frozen winter region, you can expect to get frozen, and that is the one scariest status ailment in the game, because when you're frozen, you just sit there until you get hit, and that is going to be something that gets everybody out of negative status ailment, and then you're gonna have to either invest in these Dark Files units or whatever new units we get then. So I agree with you on a lot of points. Going into this unit, you can be confident that you have a set of units that when we do get that new region, you can hold on to those and go play in that new region. I think for anybody in Gant or Greece, you're gonna have to switch out like as soon as possible, because I think that content is not even gonna be playable because of how often you will be frozen.
I was actually going to ask you, Thrift, there is an Addi capsule, I think it's called the Addi Ward capsules, which give you a bunch of down resistance, which is all resistance. Do you think that is a viable choice for Giant units or Grias units, that, hey, maybe you could use those Addi capsules instead to cover the elemental weaknesses?
You could. If you're running 3, I don't think it's worth it because of how the equation operates with status ailment. It operates how our potency scaling works, where every single percent that you have above the other scales harder than the previous one. It's the same way in the negative direction for the status ailment. So even though you have 50% negative status ailment on each unit, you finish up with like 237%. So you have another 87% that came out of nowhere. So getting 20% from these capsules, it really isn't going to do too much if you run 3. However, there is a very popular unit build that will run like either 2 Giant plus 1 Vitalin or 2 Grias plus 1 Vitalin. And that Vitalin armor is simply there to cover the negative HP that the Giant or Grias provides, since Vitalin is a 70 HP unit. And in that case, since you only have 2 units that are providing negative status ailment, you could use Ward or those Addi Ward capsules, and that would give you 80% status ailment if you ran it on all 4 pieces of equipment, right? And so then in that case, you really don't have a lot of negative status ailment. You're really not that bad. You shouldn't expect to get these negative ailments as often. But if you're running 3, I mean, you've just accepted that you're gonna get stunned, you're gonna get burned, you're gonna get frozen. It's a way of life, I like to call it. If you go the 3 Gian Agrias, you're accepting that that's just a part of your life, and you just go on with it.
You know, I've always questioned a lot of the quote-unquote meta. So as we know, I think the established meta right now is full glass cannon, damage, and a ton of PP. So what established this meta? Do you know?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no drawbacks to dying. That's the one thing I'll always mention. If you die, what's the worst that happened? You sit on the ground until someone revives you with one of their 5 reverse sins, right? And it's for that reason that there is literally 0 drawback to dying. And so why not build more damage and be absolutely glass cannon? There is only a very few specific things that I can think of the top of my head that would require you to have some sort of survivability. And that would be content that you handicap yourself in. So for example, it would be running purple triggers. If you were running them solo so nobody was there to revive you, right? That would be a reason where you might have to change your build a little bit to have a little bit more survivability. But like if you're running a purple trigger with 4 people and you die, there's 3 people ready to revive you. And even if you die, you are auto revived in 5 seconds. So there is just literally no downside to dying compared to other games. We've talked a lot about that in my chat recently too, trying to see like how could Sega make this game challenging and make it rewarding to build more balanced or defensive, if you will. And a lot of us came to the same reasoning of like, you have to do something with the revives. You either need to limit the amount of revives that you could use on a person, or one idea that I really like is having something along the lines of res sickness or resurrection sickness, where if nobody actually uses a reverse sin on you, you revive and you have like a lot of negative status. You would have maybe like, lower defense, lower move speed, lower attack, and so that it's an actual penalty to dying. And if we had systems like that in the game that put you in these really horrible situations if you continually die, you would see the switch to a more balanced meta, or you would see a lot of these glass cannon players begin building more balance just because dying actually matters. But right now it just doesn't. It just doesn't.
Wow, that I never actually thought about that was why the meta was built this specific way. I have a different approach because by implementing penalties and stuff like this, I don't really like that type of direction because it would also impact a lot of the casual players. So the way that I see it, Thrift, is you kind of represent the more hardcore players, the people who like to number crunch, the people who are smart about the game. They play smart. But I represent more of the people that are the casual, quote-unquote, dumb gamers, right? And so in my point of view, I think that if Sega introduced solo content, it would encourage a lot of people to build slightly more balanced or even tankier, because maybe in the solo content, it was if you died once, you just auto-failed the mission. Where it was like in base game, where there was a lot of content like that. There wasn't this auto-revive feature after 5 seconds. It was, if you're dead, the mission ends, you gotta start over. And that was it. And so it encouraged a lot of people to build more balanced builds instead of going full glass cannon. Or if you went full glass cannon, you, as Thrift said, you know, just get good and just block and you'll be fine, right? That's what I think, at least.
This is good. Like I said, I don't play. I played very little base game, so this is really good for me to hear that there was these types of systems in the previous version of this game, because that leads me to believe that Sega understands what they can do. Now, granted, like it really feels like they are trying to make this game absolutely casual, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it is a huge letdown to a player like myself that I like to try to find challenge, and I like to try to feel like I've earned something when I play a game. And that seems that's the big separation right now with a lot of our content, is how do you make content friendly and available to any player that wants to come in and play without introducing that toxic mentality that comes from needing to be this good or needing to have certain stats. And that is a battle that any MMO is always going to face. And you can see it play out right now in our game right now. A lot of the content feels too free. And so if you are a casual player or just logging on every once in a while wanting to experience things, it is a great time, right? But if you are somebody that wants to play this game day in and day out, or take it a little bit more seriously, it is a huge letdown as to how easy things are. And that's going to be a question that Sega needs to try and answer at some point, is how do you blend those two playing styles together into one healthy community that can progress and flourish, enjoy the game, but also enjoy the challenge. And that's an MMO's dream, right?
Yeah, totally agree. So what do you think about the different ranking systems? You know how now we have rank 1 and rank 2 of Alio for the urgent quests. Do you think that is separating the community, or is that just like a necessary system change that they needed to do?
I'm glad they took it in the direction that they did, because when we first heard that they were going to introduce these new combat zone rankings, I was very afraid that they were going to introduce the exploration zones as an additional ranking system. And I was very afraid that that was going to completely fracture the player base. A part of being an open world system is for a new player to experience this world and experience these high level players running around and defeating things, and have that excitement of what's to come. And I was very afraid that they were going to have these rank 2, rank 3, rank 4 exploration zones and prevent that opportunity for a new player. So I'm glad that they didn't go in that direction. And so because they didn't go in that direction, I don't care what they do with combat zones, UQs. The little bit of base game that I played, you already had that. You had each forest zone, tundra zone you went to, you had level 25, level 45, 55. They had hard, ultra hard, extreme hard. So this is nothing new to the franchise, as long as they keep it out of the exploration zones. I think what they need to do is find more reason to go into exploration zones and create a lot of excitement for any new player, seeing people playing and with all their gear and their fashion and their armor.
So speaking about exploration zones, I know that your channel revolves a lot around bonking veterans. So, what changes would you like to see added into exploration zones, or mainly about veterans in general?
Oh man, don't touch my veterans. Sega, give me level 40 Alio veterans. Because right now I'm going back to Retem. I spend most of my time back in Retem clearing those veterans so we can get some capsules. But, as for exploration zones, I think there's a lot of untapped opportunity in these zones. We have these trials that just pop up out of nowhere, and the implication or the suggestion would be to go and accomplish them. Go take out whatever is there. It's a boss trial. Go defeat the enemy. But there is little to no reason to actually do that. You go defeat them, you get 1,000 Maceta. Congratulations. But most of the time, if you're in an exploration zone, you can you can make more out of your time than just to go clear these trials. I think one thing that they could really do that would improve the player base experience is to begin introducing badges or medals. We've seen that all in base game where you have a bajillion different badges and you can exchange them for some type of reward. And I think that these trials in these exploration zones are such an untapped opportunity. For a new player, you would be able to go into Central Alio, start doing these trials right away, and you would be getting these, if you want to call them trial badges. And just imagine if you could exchange those for augmentation aids, maybe early game gear that doesn't matter late game, but helps players get going in the game. What if there was a little bit of fashion that you could even exchange for? And this would also probably be pretty interesting or useful for an experienced player to go spend some time with their friends or their alliance mates going out in the open world and clearing random trials to get these badges because they want something from that shop. And I think that is a really good opportunity for new players as well as experienced players to come together to accomplish a goal. And I think, once again, the biggest goal for any MMO is to try to create lasting memories and really good impressions on new players, because you want them to have something to look forward to. And you just don't see anybody in the open exploration or you don't see anybody in the open exploration zones really anymore. So it's just a desert out there when you're by yourself.
Like, what I was thinking was maybe NGS could take a page from Destiny 2. Like, I haven't played much of Destiny 2, but from the little bit of time that I did play, there was this mechanic in the open world area where there was like a banner on the floor, and then when you activate the banner, there would be like it's sort of like a trial mission like in NGS, but once you completed the trial, if you did specific criterias, it would upgrade the trial into like an elite trial. And then during the elite trial, it would spawn these boss monsters. So I was thinking, if trials had that in NGS, where maybe when you complete it under a certain time or something, it would spawn a veteran. So people would be incentivized to go do these trials in order to spawn the veterans so that they can kill the veterans for the loot that they drop. Or the second alternative that I was thinking was, when you're selecting a room, maybe just have the little thing or little symbol that lets you know that, hey, these veterans are up in this room. So people have a clear indicator to know what room to go to.
Both of those sound amazing. Hey, any reason to just change up the game and spice it up. I think a lot of the issue right now is that the game's very dull. You have really only two options. It's go combat zone training, or like what I like to do, go kill veterans and see if you can get some loot from there. You can go do purples, but a lot of it is just the same old song and dance. And it would be really great if these trials served that purpose to just change it up. Like you said, you go to these trials and you defeat the enemy. You don't know what is going to spawn afterwards, or because you defeated it quick enough, what is going to happen. That sense of surprise would be great for this game. One thing that I come back to, I played a little bit of Final Fantasy 14, and a lot of people will know the Fates system. Did you ever play Final Fantasy 14, Keroppi?
I have not, but I know of the Fate system.
Okay, so in the Fate system, it would change your level to match the level of the monsters. And I was amazed by this because, like I said, I was the new player. And so here I am, I'm just training in my zone. And this huge person comes flying off of a dragon's back, and he's got like crazy gear, but he's level 10 with me, taking out these monsters together, working side by side, and we accomplish the fate. I get my fate tickets and EXP, and then he just goes flying off on his dragon again. And I'm sitting there just in in amazement of like, holy smell, that's gonna be me soon. I'm gonna have a dragon. I'm gonna be flying around on that thing. Did you see that dude's weapon? Like, once again, such an amazing opportunity as a new player and myself just to experience what is possible in this world. And once again, trials are supposed to be something that brings us together. You're supposed to go do this. It pops it up on the map, right? Like it's a big ordeal. And then we do nothing with it. So I love your idea. I think what I experienced in that game, Final Fantasy, I just, Sega can do so much with trials to create that type of experience for new players, but also make it rewarding for an experienced player or a veteran, and all around just be a benefit for the game.
Yep, I agree. I feel like something that the exploration zones haven't touched yet is the gameplay loop. Like in combat zones, we have a very clear gameplay loop. There's all these symbols, we go to the symbols, we kill it, we get a PSE burst, and we kill a bunch of mobs. It's very simple, right? But there's no clear-cut gameplay loop in the exploration zones. While I do understand, it's supposed to be free form and do whatever you want, but there needs to be some sort of blueprint, some sort of roadmap to let people know that, hey, you can do this, you can do that in this exploration zones. I think the Stella pack system was a push in the right direction of like, hey, you can collect all of these Stella packs in order to get some goodies, some Mastery 2s, some special scratch tickets, SG. But other than that, that seems to be like a monthly thing. It only comes, every premium PSO2 day pretty much. But other than that, we need a little bit more of a roadmap or some sort of system, because we don't really know what to do in exploration zones at the moment.
Bonk veterans, what else to do?
Fair enough.
I think we are on the right page. Trials are a really good opportunity to create that roadmap. Like you said, you can go do anything, but if a trial appears, it should be it should be a message of like, hey, let's go do that. It's going to be good stuff. It's better than what we're doing now. Sure, you can ignore it if you want to, but make it rewarding. Some people out there would probably die for that opportunity to just drop what they're doing and go do something that's, spawned over here. I am not a fan of combat zones because I find it overly boring. And I know people that come play with me hate veterans, right? We all don't like our certain thing. It would be nice if the exploration zones had that other option of, hey, let's go farm these trials and we get a reward for it, right? I think it would be a huge improvement to the game, and at least just offer another thing just to spice it up while we wait for these huge content drops.
Something I realized is we didn't really talk much about the Cenquian Weapons while we jumped straight into all of this exploration and stuff. So, I'll bring the conversation back and let's talk about the Cenquian Weapons. The first thing I want to address is I have a relic katana, Fixa 4 Fatale. Do you think I should even bother thinking about the Cenquian Weapons or not?
Well, in your case, no, because RNG blessed you with that weapon. But, I mean, in all reality, we kind of talked about it earlier with the Photon Scales situation. I think that is going to be a huge deciding factor in if you decide on Relic or Senquiam. I actually believe because of that announcement with the Photon Scales, it makes Relic a much more appealing weapon series for a lot of the player base. Like I said, not everybody's playing this game that much right now, and that's okay. But if you're not going to put in the time to do the UQs to get the scales, Relic is the weapon series right now, right? Because you don't have to worry about getting this item that you can only get 5 of a day. You don't have to worry about, spending your life revolving around these urgent quests when they're announced. You can just simply go right on ahead, get your Relic, and then it's complete, Mm-hmm. So I actually think there's a case to be made that Relic is actually in a really good spot right now, because it really does appeal to that mass of players that are like, I want a good weapon, but I ain't spending 9+ hours on this game waiting for these, these announcements for EUQs. Now there is a bit of a difference in damage. There is. It's been clarified by a lot of channels. I have a video about it too, going over the data calculations of both sets. Sega did announce that they wouldn't make any weapon series that are that much stronger than Relic, and they are technically true with that statement if you were to compare a clean relic to a clean Senquiam, or in your case, a Fixa 4 relic to a Fixa 4 Senquiam. There really isn't that much of a damage difference, but we all know how difficult it was to drop a relic, and therefore when you do drop a relic, how rare it had to be to actually be a Fixa relic, right? You're just one lucky son of a gun, keroppi. But for most of us, if we did drop a relic, it was clean. And so most of us were only using a clean relic. And as you can already see in the markets, as some of you have already probably experienced, dropping a Senquiam with a Fixa is much easier because you can farm them in the dark files you queue. You can go to and into any of these high rank sectors and also drop them. So you're not necessarily comparing a clean relic to a clean Senquiam. You're going to be able to get into Fixa attack 2 or 3, or Fixa fatale 2 or 3 Senquiams. And that's where you're going to see a huge damage disparity. So for the case of most players, it is a damage improvement. The item potential is pretty nice as well. PP consumption reduction is never something to scoff at. You know, you can, that along with units that have, you know, like Fixa Performer that have PP consumption reduction, your food as well. I mean, you can get to 20% PP consumption reduction without really having to try now with the new Cenquian weapon. And that's a lot of stat to, you know, that's a lot of PP to reduce off of each skill. But like in the case of you, Fixa 4, nah, bro, you're good. Yeah, that katana is good until the next region. Hey, it might be good even past that region.
That's good to know. But so I just want to clarify for the audience as well as for myself. So the Cenquian weapons, their potential, right? Or their potential, it is through unique augments. Is that correct?
Yes, and it has been confirmed by some members of the community. I know there's videos out there. I don't know exactly the channels for this, but there are videos out there that have tested what is it unique augments, or is it just augments in general? And it is unique augments.
Okay, cool. So for the average player, do you think that everyone should be going to Cenquian Weapons?
Like I said, it really matters on how much time you're willing to invest. There's a couple options to make it a bit easier to get into these higher level potentials. There was a previous AC scratch at point that had the Addi the Addi capsules in it, and one of the other things you could also get in that was called, what were they called? End potential unlock substitutes, and they ignored the material cost. And at that point when they came out, it didn't matter any. We didn't have Senquiam yet, but now we do, and Photon Scales are tough to get, and that is a really good option to skip some of these level up material requirements. But you have to buy them. You can't get them through AC anymore, so they are pretty expensive. So if you can buy those, if you have the money to buy those, yeah, Senquiam is still a great option for an average player. But if you have to farm all 1250 Photon Scales, it's going to take you a long time to even reach the damage potential that Relic can. And so, like I said, you know, for the average player, it really depends on how much time you're willing to give this game. I think that's the biggest define. Rather, if you like playing this game, great. But if you're not putting in the time right now, Senquiam just shouldn't really be an option.
So this is my take, and then you can correct me if you think differently. But my personal take on the situation regarding weapons is, if you're a super casual player and you've got like no Photon Scales collected at all, I would just stick with your Griaga weapon and just stick with that.
Yeah.
Stick with that for now. Mm-hmm. And then in next month, we're going to get the new seasonal weapons, which are light element, most likely. Then just switch to that, because you're going to help out a ton in the Dark Falls Urgent Quest because it's weak to light. All the mobs are going to be weak to light, and that is going to be your next upgrade for a short while, right? What do you think? Do you agree with me here or disagree?
Well, I'm using a Griaga weapon right now, so I have to agree with you. No, I sold my Relic. I was prepared to go into Senquiam, and while I wait for my Senquiam to either drop or become affordable to buy, I'm also using Griaga. We've mentioned it a million times, but there's no content right now that requires these new weapons. But it's an MMO's mentality, an MMO gamer mentality to want to upgrade. And so if you want to, go ahead, but you got to remember there's nothing in this game that requires it. As a matter of fact, I went and did Dark Files UQ in my old Force gear because I used to play Force. I was in all 4-star gear, including my Straga weapon. And once again, no problem. You have a whole hour to clear it. Like, no content requires it. So for the average gamer, your Griaga weapon is completely serviceable. And I 100% agree with you. We're going to have the new seasonal event show up. One of the things that happens with these seasonal events is that all of the monsters, or all of the big monsters, the veterans, the UQs, and the seasonal UQ, and the Dark Files UQ, all of them are going to be weak to light. So yes, hold on to your Griga, hang out with that for another month, save your money. We're going to get this new event. Everything's going to be weak to light. If your weapon is one of these new seasonal weapons, it's a great opportunity to go into that. You're going to have the new exploit that comes out as well, and you're going to be able to take out everything with a new weapon. And if you want to just dive in on that weapon, go ahead. But hey, here's the next thing to think about, keroppi. Once that seasonal event ends, we know we're going back to Retem. And do you remember what most monsters are weak to in Retem?
They're wind, right?
Yeah, well, we already have that weapon out too. So that's another thing to think about. If you want to bounce around these weapons with the event weapons, we already have wind weapons out. And guess what? Those are like dirt cheap too. So like, if you are an average gamer and you want to have good weapons for the next little bit, like, you can find some really good deals on wind weapons and just hold on to them until we go back to Retem, and you're going to be just fine with that weapon too. So like I said, I don't think you have to go into Senquiam. I don't think you have to go into Relic. Griaga is going to operate just fine. But if you have that MMO gamer need to just work on something, you have the new light weapons come out. And when that event is over, we're going right back to the region that everything is weak to wind. So, you know, you can go right into one of the old Tempesta weapons that we have too.
Yeah, that's a very good analysis, actually. I never thought of that. But I wanted to touch on the Photon Scales. So this is a new system that Sega implemented where it was like, okay, we went too extreme with the Relic. You know, it was impossible to get. A lot of people are frustrated. And so we took away the RNG. We said, here, you can get your weapons easily, but the upgrade cost is absurd. Do you think Sega went, again, too extreme on the whole upgrade system? Or do you think this is okay?
I do think it is a bit too extreme, but I understand their rationale behind it. Like you said, the Relic series was a disaster. It was a huge mistake, in my opinion. The drop rate was way too low. For example, I've killed almost 3,300 Retem veterans and have not seen a single one drop. And farming with almost 30 plus people, we've only ever seen 7 drops. So you multiply 3,300 by 30, only 7 dropping. It's like, we're in like the 1,000th of a percent right now. We're talking about for my personal drop rate experience. And so it was a really bad drop rate, and it really made a lot of us question, like, what is Sega's logic behind this? And so I do hate that they made these so easy, but you kind of had to. If you left Relic as the best in slot and the thing to achieve, but basically made it impossible to get, I know that I would be really disheartened to continue playing the game. I know a lot of others would be really disheartened as well, because at that point you're just playing the lottery. So I do agree with the Senquiam series. I don't like how expensive it is to upgrade, but I don't think a lot of people care about it right now, simply because at least I can get a weapon and I can work on it. I think that's the overall narrative behind these weapons. At least it's achievable, and with time investment, I can get my great weapon that I want. Whereas, you know, prior to, it's just, I hope I get it today. But moving forward, I hope that this isn't the direction. I really hope that at some point we get items that are locked behind your account, so we have a reason to go challenge ourselves, and you have to earn gear that is locked onto your account. I think that is something that Sega should get into at some point, because then you are going to start having that sense of pride behind your account, accomplishing things, and getting that gear that, you know, only you can use, only your character can use. And so, you know, it's just that sense of accomplishment that I think a lot of us have been missing.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think your wish is probably going to come true, because I believe there was an interview or an article that was posted recently where Sega pretty much said that the 6-star rarity weapons are going to be account bound and not tradable. So that is pretty interesting.
Now, hold on. I hope that not all of it is account locked or only account tradable. I do hope that there's still a way for us to make money. Equipment is something that is, can be bought and sold. But like a lot of other games, I can refer back to like my World of Warcraft days. You had they called them the greens, your best in slot greens that you would need before you went into the raids to get all of your account locked really good items. And those best in slot greens you could buy and sell. And so there was some value to farming them or crafting them, because anybody who wanted to challenge themselves to try to get that really good gear basically needed this gear to even have the stats to compete in the UK or in the raids. I do hope we have something like that where, say for example, Griaga could be our best in slot green that would be tradable, but the relics would have been account locked, right? I do hope there's a way that we can still go out and make money, earn money, and because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to progress our account stat-wise, but we're also trying to afford fashion here. So Sega, don't take away all of my options to make money.
Yeah, I fully agree. It's funny that you say this though, because I know you didn't play much of the base game, but in base PSO2, they literally had this system that you speak of. You had all of these weapons. So for example, let's say that you wanted the new 6-star weapon. It required you to get like maybe a Griaga weapon, a Cenquian weapon, and another weapon, and you combine it together to make the new 6-star weapon. They had this system back in base PSO2, where all of the base weapons were tradable. However, the new upgraded weapon was not tradable. So you collected all of these weapons, you farmed for them, you sold them, made your money, whatever, and then when you upgraded it to the new version, the new upgraded weapon, that was not tradable, that was locked onto your account, and it was done. That was it. Very simple.
I like this. Now, my question for you is it too soon for some type of mechanic like that?
That's a great question. Honestly, I think it's not too soon yet. I really want crafting to be a thing in the game. Like, I want to be able to work towards something where I can see, I don't need to see drastic upgrades, but I want to be able to have that sense of incremental upgrades that I'm working towards my character. I'm making my character stronger over time. The thing that I always get stumped about right now is in the current meta of NGS is like, you're saving money, and it's like, oh, this is the next big thing. Boom, you drop a crap ton of resources onto it and you upgrade. Then you just skip a whole bunch of things and you're just saving, and the next big upgrade, boom, you drop a bunch of things. And the reason for this is because our augments are locked onto our armors as well as our weapons, which is why we have to save so much. Because, for example, my relic katana, I invested, I want to say 20-30 million worth of augments on this weapon. So to tell me to switch to another weapon, I won't do it unless it is 30 million, if it's just that much better than my current weapon, because of the amount of time and money I've invested. And so if there was this upgrade system where I can carry over my augments to the new piece of armor or the new weapon, then I would be more inclined to upgrade more frequently. But I crave that upgrade system where I can constantly feel like, yes, I'm getting stronger. As you said, the MMO mentality, I need that, because that gives me drive to play the game.
Now, you just mentioned something that I haven't heard before, and I like it. Using the upgrading system to actually carry over augments. I think that's genius. We've had a lot of discussion about that on Twitch. Like, how do we get augments carried over? And some people mention, oh, just have an augment transfer system, much like we have the fix-it transfer system in. And I am completely against that, because once again, if you make just by getting one set of augments and you can just transfer it all around free, or like, you pay a little bit, but just basically the idea is you invest heavy once and then you can just transfer it all around how you want to. Once again, you're eliminating, or you're limiting the amount of opportunities that players have to go make money. And I'm not for that, but I like your idea that you could make fix-it transfers through or not fixes, but augment transfers through the crafting system. Because I sit here and I'm like, I have Mastery 3 on my old Straga rod. Wouldn't that be awesome if that was a craftable in the future, and I can just throw Mastery 3 on that new one? Maybe it's not the best in slot anymore, but like Mastery 3 is still a really good augment, and it would be potentially useful in that meta as like the fifth or sixth augment. And yeah, you've opened my light. I agree. It's Sega crafting. Let's go. I'm ready.
Like, I think that would be really fun, but something that I really miss about the base game that I feel like NGS could really take this opportunity would be the unique set bonuses and passives of specific weapons. So for example, we had the light stream weapons in the base game where it would refill your PP gauge to full the moment you switch to it. And I feel like that would be a very interesting mechanic, or it doesn't have to be fill up your PP gauge, but just have some unique stuff, like gear that might not be best in slot, but it has this really unique passive where it's like, oh, I can weave that into my playstyle to spice things up, to make things a little bit more fun, a little bit more interesting. I would love to see some more items, or just any items right now in NGS that had unique passives or unique skills.
I am very upset that we don't have set bonuses already in the game. I was hoping that these Dark Files units would be the first unit bonus that we got, or set bonus. It's such a disappointment because I love theory crafting. I love the idea of the meta being mixed depending on what you want, and a part of that is the idea behind having a skill bonus by going heavy into a certain resource or investment. And I'm amazed that we still don't have set bonuses, and maybe with that skill bonuses too, like you're mentioning, keroppi. I would love that. I always talk about, I play Hunter, for anybody that doesn't know, and I play Partisan, and so Iron Will is one of our skills, so we're drop down to 1 HP sometimes. I would love to have a skill that says if I'm at below 10% HP, I have all these increased stats so that I could go, I can really challenge myself to stay in this very risky area of health to try to get a lot of stat, and it change or identify, or change or define how I play my character. And I could be completely different to somebody else in their skill bonuses based on what they have as their unit bonuses, set bonuses, skill bonuses, whatever you want. But I'm very surprised we're 7, almost 8 months in, and we still don't have those.
Yeah, I fully agree. Because again, I hate bringing it up all the time, I sound like a broken record, but we had that in the base game. You had a specific augment which was like lower your HP by 50% but give you all of these positive offensive stats. And I'm just surprised that NGS is the successor of PSO2, at least that's what Sega wants, but they're not taking what they learned from 10 years of PSO2 into NGS. Maybe they have, maybe I'm wrong and this is in their pipeline and they're working on it, but it's just very surprising and a little bit disheartening as a base player. I played the game for like a year and a half, and then we had all of these wonderful mechanics which I enjoyed, but when we come to NGS it's like a full blank slate, and it's just like, you had all this done, why didn't you just take what you learned and apply it into the base into NGS? So it's really frustrating from my point of view, and of course it must suck for you that have you've never played, well, you've played a little bit of the base game, but in NGS you're just like, wow, the game has nothing. It's been 8 months and we're still at our current state.
That's the problem though, is that even with my little bit of PSO2 time, I identified things that were wonderful, and then I ask myself the same thing: why don't we have these in the game? As a company who has already made a very successful MMO for over 10 years, to not introduce anything that you've learned was successful, and the things that weren't successful, how do you not introduce the successful things into this new game? You knew that crafting was something that was valuable. I know it's a bit touchy about some people that like the crafting systems and some that did not, but in the case that we're talking about with unit or with weapons and merging them together, how is that not in the game? They built this engine from the ground up, and I ask myself all the time, if I was building the successor to my very successful franchise for over 10 years in PSO2, how am I not making blueprints for things that were already successful and putting them in this game right away. They have the blueprint ahead of them of how to make a really good game for the players that are still playing that game. It's not like they're trying to go out and get all new player bases. A lot of the players that played PSO2 are playing New Genesis, and you know what they liked. So why aren't you using that to your advantage? You're not a broken record. You're preaching to the choir because you're not the only one that feels that way. It actually is almost stupefying how much they have to use and how little they're doing with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's really frustrating from my side. But either way, what I want to transition to now is Thrift. The floor is yours. Do you have any topics you want to talk about right now? Because I am out of topics on my side.
Let's go back in the UQ. You know, I have a whole list here. I only said one thing. Hey, listen, we've been just bouncing off of each other, which is wonderful, but I got a lot of stuff I want to bring up. You know, I told you I was going to try to throw some hot takes your way and see how you feel about them, okay?
Okay, let's go.
Well, we talked about the UQ. You asked me how many times I've ran. You asked about my experience, but what was your first experience like in this UQ? What was the feeling?
I really enjoyed the UQ. To me, it was... I'm more of a emotional gamer. So when I'm going into a urgent quest or if I'm going into any sort of experience in game, the first thing that I care about is the ambience, the mood, the music. It's less about the gameplay for me, and it's more about the scale of epicness that I feel. And they really nailed it here. Because I went in, I was like, wow, this boss is huge. And then the music kicked in when we got into the third phase, and I was just like, oh my gosh, god. That music. And it gave me that scale of epicness that I was craving in NGS. Because if we look at the other bosses, right? So, you know, they slowly did ramp up. It was a very slow burn. From Alio, the bosses were like, okay, we've got this giant doll. Okay, we've got this, this giant dragon. Then we got Mining Base, and then we got Renes Ratem, as well as the guitar guy, right? So that level of scale I've seen over and over already. But this boss was just on a totally different level. It was so out there that I was like, wow, this is an epic fight. And then you could really tell that they put a lot of effort into it, because like, look at all the other bosses. The other bosses, their music don't have like vocals. So you know something's up when that music hits and you're like, there's vocals. And so I really enjoyed it because it gave me that sense of, wow, I'm in an epic battle. This is PSO2. But of course, if we wanted solely talk about mechanics and like, you know, the nitty gritty and the breakdown, like it was an okay fight. It was fun. It was very fun, but it was very simplistic. It was like, oh, look, there's this yellow thing. I should probably hit it. And it was very simple in that sense of mechanics, I guess. But yeah, I liked it.
I'm so glad we meet eye to eye on so many things. That was my thing. I tried to go in blind. There was some like spoilers of the music, and I was like, oh, don't listen to it. There was some preview videos of like the fight itself. I was like, oh, don't watch it. I'm so drunk on copium that I was like, I need this to be good, right? And so that was my experience too. I turned on background music for the first time in like 5 months in the game, and yeah, just, oh my gosh, when he like breaks down the enclosure and the dawn of Alio is casting upon you, and it's just like gave you that like otherworldly feeling of like, yeah, you're accomplishing something, and oh my god, the music, like it's still every single time I'll turn the background music on just so I can hear those vocals. It is incredible. And Sega, please, more. I will take more music like that every fight. Feel free to go back through the sound files and change even like Nex Alio and put some sound. It was incredible how beautiful the environment of that fight was. But I'm right there with you. The mechanics weren't that spectacular. I think the biggest mechanic in Keroppi, you're a melee player as well, I think the biggest enemy in that game is the camera. It's horrible. You cannot lock on as a melee. You cannot lock on for that entire fight. Arms are going 50 meters up in the sky, and you are sent on a tailspin with your camera if you're locked on. You have arms swinging from the other side, and they're just coming out of nowhere to smack you down. And that's what I realized right away, is like, this is a melee player's nightmare. So you can't lock on, which, okay, that's fine. But now you're just moving your camera everywhere, and it becomes a very messy fight very soon. Now, of course, as practice comes on, we will be able to identify certain mechanics. It'll get easier, but oh man, that whole first day, I was like, this is rough. This is really rough as melee. The other thing, yeah, like you said, some of the mechanics just didn't seem important. He has that phase where he switches into his like enraged phase, and he drops like the little spiders or whatever on the ground, and they have the lasers. You know that part?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
What is that for? I've never seen a single person get hurt by it, because you just jump and glide over them and you walk right beside it and you never get hit once. And so there's a lot of like, when we saw the headline of that, I was like, oh, that looks really tough. Like if they're always going to like cross the beams and like always hit you, so you have to guard or something. But no, you just walk beside one of them and you're never gonna get hit. The whole like last part, I'm gonna post a meme video about this, but I literally played as Force, and that whole last section where he just kind of like wiggles and you're just trying to finish him off, and all he does is shoot the laser beam and jump in the sky. You could stand there as a ranged player and never get touched by any of it. And so it just seems like, yes, the mechanics of the fight weren't that spectacular. And so, hey, I know Sega can do better, so I'm not gonna be fair to them, because I know they can do better. But everything else, like you said about the fight, was just gorgeous. I mentioned at the top of this pod, like, there's only so many memorable moments that I can think of in this game. The first few days of the game, my first Gigantics kill when they actually would despawn. Oh, I'll never forget that. And this was like the other one. Like, there's like only a few memories that I can hold on to. Like, for years to come, I could always talk about this game, and it will be that moment when he breaks the enclosure and you see Aelio in the background, like, and the music comes in. Like, that is such an iconic moment to this game. Moving forward, I know that like when people talk about this game, that moment right there, that 15 seconds, is going to be on people's minds. And that's really impressive for a company to be able to create that. And I hope they understand that that is so amazing what they did, and just move on with it. Carry it on. We want more Dark Files fights, and we want them to be that epic. Bring it on, Sega. We're ready for the challenge.
It's freaking amazing. Like, overall, the Urgent Quest, I really enjoyed it. Regarding your concerns or your questions about the laser beams, as a casual player, I see a lot of people dying from those lasers because they're not at the edges when the spiders drop down. They're more in the middle. And if you're in the middle, you're kind of caught in all of these laser beams. And that usually causes a lot of deaths. However, for the hardcore players, don't worry, because I think in the coming months, when we get the quote-unquote super hard content in the roadmap, I'm pretty sure we're going to be getting this Urgent Quest, the same Urgent Quest, but a 4-man version where you are limited to 3 deaths. So if you die more than 3 times, you auto-fail the mission. So again, the reason why I have this knowledge or this assumption is because we had the same thing in the base game, where they didn't call it super hard quest, but you had to complete the Urgent Quest first in order to unlock this special one, where there was like a rematch mode, where you get to fight the Darkfalls again, but in a 4-man version. And he had new moves, he had different attacks, he dealt a lot more damage, and if you die 3 times, you failed. So I'm pretty sure they're gonna bring that mechanic back with the super hard content. For Darkfalls, for sure. I don't know about the other Urgent Quest. It would be nice, but I'm definitely looking forward to that.
That sounds awesome. I'm cool with that. I have another question. We're getting a new UQ when we go back to Ritem. Do you have any ideas what that could be? Any thought process going on up at the end there?
I mean, we've seen some information about like there's something under the pyramid or there's something in the pyramid, right? So that could be something. But personally, I still think that is going to be more of an endless quest, a divide quest, or some sort of gameplay loop, right? So what else could we get? It would have to be We've got dolls, we've got worms. What else is in deserts? Scorpions? Maybe we got a new scorpion boss? Sorry, what did you say just then?
I said mummies. There's
Mummies.
mummies in pyramids, right?
True.
Yeah.
Actually, that is a good point. Maybe we get like a pharaoh. Maybe a pharaoh comes out, or we try to raid the tomb. Because like Nadara's like, yo, we need the special relic in order to fully defeat Renes Retem for good. Because he keeps coming back, right? During the concert he came back, we defeated him in his stupid cave during the storyline, but he keeps coming back, and there's different variants of it too. The one we beat in the cave was just like a regular Renes Retem. The one on Nadara's side story was a gold Renes Retem. Maybe we get like a new type of Renes Retem, like a platinum version or something. or I guess the Gigantix version, right? The elite version of it could probably pop up. And yeah, maybe Nadara's like, yo, my ancestors buried something down there and we gotta go get it. And then the pharaoh comes out, or the mummy comes out, and it's just like, you need to prove that you're worthy by fighting me. And that could be the urgent quest. Yeah, I don't know.
I think you're onto something with that Renis. I never thought about before, but if you've seen the videos of people glitching through the floor and actually go down below the pyramid, right? That might look like a burrowed hole, if you will. Maybe that's Renis's home, because the veteran is right there. So maybe that's his burrowed home. And we have to fight the true form underneath. He goes underneath and goes into the pyramid, and that's how we're going to find him, is following his burrowed hole into the pyramid.
That is a good observation. That would be pretty awesome.
Just 2 and 2, putting it together.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I got one final thing that I think needs to be mentioned, because with the UQ that we experienced, and both of us here, me being a little bit more, I guess, min-maxy, if you will, you appealing to more casual gaming, one thing that I think that they could do, and it would be really wonderful for both communities, they need to allow us to do practice urgent quests. I think this would be one of the most intelligent things that they could design that would allow a new player to become more confident in these UQs and not feel like they're going to hold anybody back, or just to get the experience with a fight. And then on the other hand, an experienced player that maybe wants to begin challenging solo clears, or in the case that you're mentioning, these ultra hard UQs where you can only die so many times, giving us a practiced attempt like once a day or however many times a week. I think this would make the ability to create tougher content a little bit easier, because it would allow players to practice this before we have to go in and try, and potential misery occurs and then possibly toxicity afterwards. Sega practice attempts. A lot of other games do this. I used to play a lot of MapleStory, and they used to do this with all of their end game bosses. You were allowed to go in once a day and practice, and if you cleared it, congratulations. But it gave players the experience that they needed to then feel confident to go in and try, So I think practice UQs would be another thing, and that would allow Sega to create a little bit tougher content, but allow people to practice without feeling like they're going to fail or disappoint others, because they're getting that practice in when it doesn't matter, right? When the light isn't on them.
I wanted to ask you, with your MapleStory example, if they completed the quest or whatever, did they get loot for that or not?
Absolutely not. It was only for practice. So if you cleared it, great. A lot of the time you had to clear it because they would have like, at the very last minute, you would have like a DPS check or something at the last minute that you just wouldn't get to that part of the fight a lot of the time. And so this practice mode allowed you to get there and experience it and observe that part of the fight. I mean, think of it in our Dark Files UQ now. Imagine if it was insanely difficult to get to that final phase where he breaks the enclosure and you fight the true, Dark Files. Imagine if it was really difficult to get to that and you didn't always have the time to get there, but you had a practice mode so you could practice getting to that phase and then experiencing that phase. And then over time, you're building that experience and practice to actually then accomplish to defeat the monster. So no, the practice was just simply there to practice, because I know a lot of players like me, I would love to just go and give a shot at soloing, but I'm not going to waste an attempt when I could actually get loot, right? And then for the same case of a new player, I know a lot of players, especially in my alliance, we're a really small comfy alliance. I have a lot of players that are casual, and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to go unless it's with you guys, because they're scared of interrupting someone else's run or causing anything wrong. And that's unfair. That's really unfair for a player to have that mind state that they're afraid. It's honorable, but no game should make you feel afraid to try content. But like I said, when you have one chance or 30 minutes to clear something, if you don't clear it, you may not have a chance to go back in. A practice UQ or a practice attempt daily, if that person really wants to get better, they would have the resources available to go ahead and try it. And, there ain't not a lot of things to do in between these UQ times. A lot of people would probably like just popping on and practicing, that solo attempt, or practicing that Dark Files UQ, or just doing it for fun because it's actually a fun fight, and like we've already said all about it. But I think it would be a really good direction for the game.
So I'm really conflicted or split here, because the whole practice thing and the way that you sold it to me, I think is really good. But I'm worried about one thing, and that is taking away the magic of an urgent quest. So, for example, right now, Dark Falls is a very, when you experience Dark Falls, you're super psyched for it because it's something that you can't do all the time. I think that was one of the most, how do I call it, like driving forces of urgent quest. It was like, oh, it's here, go, we want to do it now.
Urgent.
Yeah, it's urgent, and it's rare. Now I don't agree with Sega's practice of like the first day they're like, yeah, we're just gonna throw in random urgent quests and not all Dark Falls. Like that was a little bit of a scummy move in my opinion. But
absolutely,
if you had access to a specific urgent quest at any time, all the time, I feel like it would take away the magic of that urgent quest. It would become like if you got to practice every day, for example, right? Then when the actual urgent quest came along and you played it, it won't feel as epic because, for example, like Nadara's concert, the Song of War, I really like that song because it's jazz. But I know a lot of people who really like the song on like the first week, but they listen to it on repeat the entire time, and now they hate the concert. They literally come in for the last 5 seconds of the concert, get the concert buff, and bounce. Because they're like, bro, we've heard this like 1,000 times, I don't want to hear the song anymore. I'm scared that might be the same case with the urgent quest, where people are like, bro, we've done this urgent quest 1,000 times, sure they didn't get loot because it's practice mode, but it's like, it's lost that sense of magic, where it's like, yes, I'm psyched, I want to go in, I want to do this, because, I haven't done it in so long, or I didn't experience it enough times. So my personal view regarding the whole practice mode is what they already announced about the triggers. I feel like if everyone got a trigger one time a week through a weekly or limited time quest or whatever, so that the new player who wants to do the urgent quest for practice, they can host it with their trigger. Then at the end of it, you get loot. So everyone is willing to support that player because they're like, yo, this guy's sponsoring this run, everyone, we're in. We'll carry you, we'll teach you, we'll do whatever you want to do because you're sponsoring the run. And this is a system that they had already in the base game. But, as I say that, I'm kind of contradicting myself, right? I'm like, if you have triggers versus if you have practice mode, it's the same thing, because you're running the urgent quest whenever you want, so it might take away the magic. And this is why I'm very conflicted on, should we have practice mode with no loot, but you can do it whenever you want, or if we should just stick with the triggers where you get one every week or every month or whatever, and you can do that whenever you want. I really don't know.
I think we both have great ideas, and I actually think there's probably a nice a marriage between those ideas. The ability to have triggers, we already know we're going to get UQ triggers at some point. The big question is going to be how available are they going to be? If we have them so available that a new player could literally just go find runs because people are just doing them and just bringing whoever they want to, that's great. They don't even need to be sponsoring. I bet you there's people that run there just like, hey, got 2 spots, who wants to come? And some new player could be like, oh, me, like, and they could get that practice. I think that is a really good option, and that's something that we can expect. We're going to be getting UQ triggers at some point. The big question is, how rare are they going to be? They might even be more rare than being able to do it once a week, right? But on what I was mentioning, like, maybe once a day is too much. Maybe it's a once a week thing. In that case, the magic of it is still there. Heck, you could even go a step further. In a new UQ, you cannot practice it until after the month. So in that case, if you were there in the moment, you had to try it, you had to experience it. But if you're somebody that is catching up, if you're a new player where these UQs, you're not running with a lot of people, if you're a new player right now trying to do, say, like next UQ rank 1, there's just not a lot of people running it. Maybe you do have that once a week practice if you want to practice Pettis or Nex or any of the other UQs, and maybe once a week is enough for somebody to feel confident in the UQ that they desire. There's probably a nice blend of the two to help all players, whether they're a new, veteran, casual, or a sweaty player.
Yeah, I think what you suggested actually just like dinged in my brain. I was like, that's actually perfect. Give it like maybe not a month. A month I think is a little bit too long, but at least the very first week, it's like, yeah, just there's no triggers. You just do the urgent quest. But like at least on the very first day, I really swear, Sega, on the very first day, all of the UQs need to be the new one, because everyone who logs in on the first day are your hardcore fans. They're, servers are up, they're online, they're ready to go. They want to experience the new stuff. So like first day should all be the new UQ, but after that, sure, whatever. You can do whatever you want after that. But like first week, no triggers. But after the first week, then sure, you can buy triggers, obtain them, farm for them, whatever. And then that way people have access to it. Because to me, that magical moment is within the first week. It's usually within the first 3 days, to be honest, where everyone's just like, yeah, let's go, But yeah, I think that's just what I was thinking on my mind.
Didn't Sega in one of the headlines announce that they planned on making the newest UQ, or when they announced it, or when it's available, they planned on making that more readily available? They've announced this in the past. I mean, I could go back and double check, but they've definitely announced that. I just still question why, just like you said, one thing that Sega is encountering right now is the dwindling player base, and you only have so many moments with content releases to really win back players, or at least win back the positivity that, hey, this game is good, even if it's in little moments. So why in the heck would you make this huge, awesome fight be like every 10 hours? I have it written here. There was 4 UQs in the first 24 hours. The first one was 1 hour after, and my time was 1 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. There's no way I'm up at 1 a.m. And the next one was 10 hours later. It was at 11 a.m. So if you're somebody that was logged in between that time, and that's the only time you could play, you didn't get to experience it? It just frustrates me, because yes, this is your staple content for the next month, basically. And the first day, the first 2 or 3, like you mentioned, you are not giving us this UQ all the time. That's such a drag, and it's so disappointing, even for me that plays every day. We all joke about it already, that after the concert, oh, which one is it gonna be? There should be no doubt about that. It should be, oh, cool, concert's happening, that means we're getting the UQ next. We should be looking forward to it, knowing that it's going to be there, so we can enjoy the new content that they brought out.
Yep, fully agree. 100% agreed there. I hope that Sega does take this to heart and, does learn from this, because honestly, what I think happened is an error. Because, for example, on the JP server, they had the Dark Falls UQ all the time, but on the global server, it was fudged up. And I feel like it's an error on the global side. When they implemented it over, they forgot to do it, or they didn't think about it, or whatever. Because it just didn't make sense. Like, the JP server nailed it. It's exactly what what we want is what the JP server has right now, but we just didn't get it right. So honestly, I think it's a mess up, but I just don't want it to happen again, right?
Get your 20-star gem apology ready.
Yeah. All right, Thrift, what else do you have? Anything else you want to talk about?
All right, I got my shout outs. No, I just wanted to go over the UQ just a little bit more. It is really good. It's this is probably the most hypest moment I've had in game, and I'm really happy to be able to share my excitement and some of my thoughts with you on the podcast. So first off, thank you for having me as a guest. This was a wonderful time.
Perfect. Yeah, it was a pleasure having you on the show. I know a lot of people requested you to be on the podcast, so I'm glad that it was a very enjoyable experience, and I'm glad that you had a good time too. But I'm gonna open the floor now for you to do any shout outs, any plugs, any of your socials, whatever you want. The floor is yours.
Yeah, so I've already mentioned it. You can catch me on Thrift Shopping on Twitch. You can also find my YouTube channel, Thrift Shopping, as well. I've got a Twitter. I just post some pictures there too. But more importantly, the community that has been backing me and has been a part of my family since I started this game. The Whales Alliance on Block 17. They were my first home when I was just me and 3 other people watching me on Twitch. They are a wonderful group of friends and family. And Block 40, B40, that they don't exist anymore, but all of my bunnies, my shadow gardens, my store spawns, my starbursts, even dots, that alliance, that whole group, they are amazing. If anybody hangs out with me on Twitch, you know that I'm always hanging out on the new Block 18, B18 Best 18. Yeah, I have so much fun in this game because of the community that surrounds this game. I've played a lot of MMOs in my life, and I can only count on one hand how many bad apples that I've actually seen in this community. It really is something special that I can share things in this game, but you guys can give even more back to me with having a warm, welcoming community. Just always trying to improve each other's lives through a game. We all try to use games as an external way to just enjoy life or just get away from the stresses of life. And this is the absolute best community that I've ever been in with an MMO. So thank you, everybody that plays this game and continues to spread that positivity.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Thrift. Again, all of Thrift's socials will be in the description below, so if you guys are interested in anything, you could just click there. But that is it for today's episode of Arks Trash. Thank you again, Thrift.
Thank you.
Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again. And that concludes this week's episode of Arks Trash. Let me know in the comment section below who you would like to see next on the show. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye!
What can I say except you're welcome? For the heals, the boosts, the